Saying and Doings, number 2. How y'all doing? At that time, Pai-Chang was in the community, working as a chief cook. The ascetic Suma quoted the story of the wild fox to him and said, "Well, what about it, cook?" Pai-Chang rattled the door 3 times with his hands. Suma said, "Too coarse." Pai-Chang said, "The Buddhist teaching is not this principle." Later, Pai-Chang quoted the story of Hung Po, asking about the wild fox, and again Yang Shang about it. Yang Shan said, "Hung Po always uses this ability." Pai-Chang said, "Tell me, did he get it naturally, or did he get it from someone?" Yang Shan said, "It is both the inheritance of his teacher's bequest and his own communion with the source as well." Pai-Chang said, "So it is. So it is." Wang Po asked, "What teaching did the ancients pass on to the people since time immemorial?" The master was silent. Hung Po said, "How will descendants pass on the transmission in later generations?" And the master said, "I thought you would be the one to do it," and then returned to the abbot's room. As the master was doing chores along with Pai-Chang, he asked, "Is there any fire?" Pai-Chang said, "There is." The master said, "Where is it?" Pai-Chang picked up a piece of firewood, blew on it, and handed it over to the master. Taking it, the master said, "Like insects devouring wood." In the course of hoeing the ground, during general request to work, a certain monk, hearing the sound of the drum, lifted up his hoe and laughed out loud, and then he went back to the monastery. The master said, "How excellent! This is the gate through which the sound seer enters into the principle." Later, he called the monk and asked him, "What truth did you perceive today?" And the monk said, "Early this morning, I didn't have any gruel. Hearing the sound of the drum, I went back to eat rice." And the master laughed. Someone asked, "What is Buddha?" And the master said, "What are you?" He said, "Me." And the master said, "Do you know me or not?" He said, "It's obvious." The master held up his whisk and said, "Do you see the whisk? Hey, let's get us a whisk. Do you see the whisk?" He said, "Yes." Then the master said no more. Master sent a monk to Chang-Ching, saying, "When you see him, go into the hall and talk about the teachings. Spread your mat, bow and rise, and take 1 sandal. Brush the dust off of it with your sleeve, and put it back, upside down." When the monk got to Chang-Chin, he did just as the master had instructed, and Chang-Ching said, "My fault." As Pai-Chang, Wu Fing, and Yun Yin were standing by, the master asked Pai-Chang, "With your mouth shut, speak quickly." And Pai-Chang said, "I cannot speak. I ask you to speak, teacher." The master said, "I do not decline to speak for you, but I am afraid afterward I would be bereft of descendants." The master, who asked Wu Fing the same thing, Wu Fing said, "You should shut up too, teacher." And the master said, "Where there was no one, I shade my eyes to gaze far off at you." He also asked Yun Yin, Yun Yin said, I have something to say. Please raise the question again, teacher. And the master said, with your mouth shut, say it quickly. Yun Yin said, do you now have anything to say or not, teacher? And the master said, I am bereft of descendants. Going up into the teaching hall, he said to the assembly, I want someone to take a message to Master Pai-Chang. Who can go? And Wufing said, I can go. The master said, oh, how will you transmit the message? And Wufing said, I'll tell you when I return. The monk asked Pai-Chang, there are questions and there are answers. This I do not ask about now. What about when there are no questions or answers? Pai-Chang said, you fear decay, huh? When the master heard this quoted, he said, up until now I had doubted old brother Pai-Chang. Someone said, please explain. And the master said, a compounded form cannot be grasped. These are interesting. Reading them out loud brings it to life to me. And it's like, Alright, the master said to the assembly, there was someone who never eats, but doesn't say he's hungry. And there's somebody who eats all day, but doesn't say he's full. No one had anything to say. Yun Yin asked the master, every day there's hard work. Who do you do it all for? The master said, there is someone who requires it. And Yun Yin said, well, why not have him do it himself? And the master said, he has no tools. When the master was a child, he went along with his mother to a temple to pay respects to the Buddha. He pointed to the statue and asked his mother, who is this? His mother said, he is a Buddha. And the boy said, his features are the same as a man's. Later on, I too shall be one. Yeah, it's your birthright. When the master did chores, he was always first in the community in taking up work. The people could not bear this, so they hid his tools away early once, and asked him to rest. And the master said, I have no virtue. How should I make others toil? Master, having looked all over for his tools without finding them, also neglected to eat. Therefore there came to be his saying that a day without working is a day without eating, which circulated throughout the land, down onto this day. Even it made its way into the Bible too. The master died on the 17th day of the first month of the 9th year of the Yuan He era of the Tang dynasty in 1814. He was 95 years old. In the first year of Chang Ching in 821, by imperial order, he was entitled Meditation Master of Great Knowledge. His memorial tower was called Magnificent Jewel Disc. Damn books. Well, or when I get to the obituary part, I always have to have a moment. sayings, according to Ku Sun Su Yu Lu. Number 1. The master called on great teacher Ma and became his attendant. Every time a patron sent food for the meal, as soon as the master opened up the lid of the container, great teacher Ma would lift up a cake, show it to the assembly, and say, "What is this?" So it was every day. The master passed 3 years thus, when one day, as he was walking along the road accompanying Patriarch Ma, he heard the call of wild ducks. Ma said, "What is that sound?" The master said, "The call of wild ducks." After a pause, Ma said, "That call just then, where has it gone?" The master said, "Flown away." Patriarch Ma turned around and grabbed the master's nose and pulled it. The master made a cry of pain. Patriarch Ma said, "And you said flown away." With these words, the Pai-Chang had insight. Pai-Chang's second calling on Matsu is recorded as follows in the Ku Sun Su Yu Lu. The master again called on Matsu. The patriarch held up the whisk. The master said, "Well, do you identify with this function or detach from this function?" After a long silence, Patriarch Ma said, "Hereafter, when you open your lips, what will you use to help people?" The master then took the whisk and held it up. Matsu said, "Do you identify with this function, or are you detached from this function?" The master hung the whisk back in its former place, whereupon Matsu shouted so loud that the master was deaf for 3 days. Sorry, I'm thinking this over. Or not thinking it over. For a split second, it's not about the function. What identifies with the function is not a whisk. Or the movement of putting it on the shelf, which makes it not anything. It never was. It was never a function to be empowered. Ooh. What do you think about that? Hey, Kimasabi. Alright. Wow. That one got my head spinning for a second there. Dude, it would be so cool if I totally got enlightened when I was reading. It would be like so awesome, like the... Oh, sorry. Feeling goofy today. Trying. Any person going to be faithful enough to watch into my videos, they have to realize that I'm unpredictable. Might be entertaining, but you gotta be serious. I don't know. God managements. Whatever you are. Continuing for a couple more minutes. Extensive record of Pai-Chang. His teachings are going to start getting super deep. On a couple pages, I promise you. These are just stories we were listening to. Language. You must distinguish the esoteric and the esoteric. You must distinguish generalizing and particularizing language. And you must distinguish the language of the complete teaching and the incomplete teaching. The complete teaching discusses purity. The incomplete teaching discusses impurity. Explaining the defilement in impure things is to weed out the profane. Explaining the defilement in pure things is to weed out the holy. Before the 9-part teachings had been expounded, living beings had no eyes. It was necessary to depend on someone to refine them. If you're speaking to a deaf worldling, you should just teach him to leave home, maintain discipline, practice meditation, and develop wisdom. You should not speak this way to a worldling beyond measure. Someone like Vimalakirti or the great hero Fu should not speak this way to a worldling beyond measure. Someone like Vimalakirti or the great hero Fu, like, don't tell them to leave home. They'll knock you on your way. If one is speaking to an ascetic, the ascetic has already given his assent 3 times, and his discipline is complete. This is the power of discipline, concentration, and wisdom. To speak in this way to him is called speaking at the wrong time, because the speech is not appropriate to the situation. It is also called suggestive talk. To an ascetic, one must explain the defilement in pure things. You should tell him to detach from all things, existent, non-existent, or whatever, to detach from all cultivation and experience, and even to detach from detachment. While in the course of asceticism, one strips away influences of habit. If an ascetic cannot get rid of the diseases of greed and aversion, he too is called a deaf worldling. He must still be taught to practice meditation and cultivate wisdom. As for monks of the 2 vehicles, they have put on an end to the disease of greed and aversion. Removing completely, they dwell in the absence of greed and consider that correct. This is the formless realm. This is obstructing Buddha's light. This is shedding Buddha's blood. You must teach them to practice meditation and to develop wisdom. You must distinguish the terms of purity and impurity. Impure things have many names, such as greed, aversion, grasping, etc., love, etc. Pure things also have many names, such as enlightenment, extinction of suffering, liberation, etc. But while in the midst of the twin streams of purity and impurity, among such standards as profane and holy, amidst form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and the world, the immediate mirror-like awareness should not have the slightest hair of grasping love for anything at all. If one no longer loves or grasps, and yet abides in not loving or grasping, and considers it correct, this is the elementary good. This is abiding in the subdued mind. This is a disciple. This is a disciple. He is one who is fond of the raft, and will not give it up. This is the way of the 2 vehicles. This is a result of meditation. Once you do not grasp any more, and yet do not dwell in non-attachment, either, this is the intermediate good. This is the half-word teaching. This is still the formless realm, though you avoid falling into the way of the 2 vehicles and avoid falling into the ways of demons. This is still a meditation sickness. This is the bondage of bodhisattvas. Once you no longer dwell in non-attachment and do not even make an understanding of not dwelling either, this is the final good. This is the full word teaching. You avoid falling into the formless realm, avoid falling into meditation sickness, avoid falling into the way of bodhisattvas, and avoid falling into the state of the king of demons. Because of the barriers of knowledge, barriers of station and barriers of activity, practice. Seeing one's own enlightened nature is like seeing color at night. As it is said, the station of Buddhahood cuts off twofold folly, the folly of subtle knowledge and the folly of extremely subtle knowledge. Therefore it is said that a man of great wisdom smashes an atom to produce a volume of scripture. Should I stop here? If one can pass through these three phases, one will not be constrained by the three stages. The doctrinal schools cite this and liken it to a deer leaping 3 times and getting out of the net. This is called an enlightened one beyond confinement. Nothing can capture or bind him. He is one of the Buddhas, succeeding to the burning lamp. This is the supreme vehicle, the highest knowledge. This is standing on the way of enlightenment. This person is Buddha, and has the enlightened nature. He is a guide, and able to employ the unobstructed wind. This is unimpeded illumination. After this, one will be able to freely use cause and effect, virtue and knowledge. And they're not unaware of cause and effect. This is making a cart to carry cause and effect. In life, one is not stayed by life. In death, one is not obstructed by death. Through within the clusters of matter, sensation, perception, coordination, and consciousness, it is as if a door had been opened, and one is not obstructed by these 5 clusters. One is free to go or to stay, going out or entering in without difficulty. If you can be like this, then there is no question of stages or steps, of superior or inferior, even down to the bodies of ants. If you can be just like this, all is the land of pure marvel. It is inconceivable. Inconceivable! Alright. Excuse me. That's all for today's moment.